What's your pain or symptom rulebook? The pain or symptom rulebook is a really useful activity that I do with almost every one of my clients. What happens when we have chronic pain or symptoms is our world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And this occurs because we're avoiding more and more things. We're doing everything we can to reduce our symptoms, to mitigate flares. And what happens is we end up having this very small shell of a life. And you're not to blame for this. This is human nature. We're trying to run away from anything that's unpleasant. As to having chronic pain and symptoms is really hard. By the end of my journey of chronic pain, I barely left my basement suite. I barely walked. I barely moved my arms. I was basically bedbound or couch-bound. I was constantly just watching TV, not working. And my world had shrunk so much because I was terrified of almost anything and everything in the world that it would somehow worsen my pain or damage my body more. And what happens is we start to develop all of these rules. Now, here's an example of a rule, a very strict rule that I had. I believed that I was not able to walk more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And this happened because the few times that I would walk more, even going to a grocery store for 20 minutes, my back and hip pain would get intensely high. And so I believed walking equals danger, walking equals pain. So I'm going to set this rule that you are only allowed to walk 5 or 10 minutes. So much so that I would even time myself. Now, what happened is the walking wasn't actually causing my pain or symptoms, but my brain just interpreted it as dangerous. And the more it interpreted it as dangerous, and the more I strictly followed this rule, the more my brain felt more in danger. So the next time I went to walk, it would actually escalate my pain even more. And so this is the problem with the rules, is often the rules are incorrect. If our pain and symptoms are neuroplastic, it's not the walking, it's not the food, it's not the movement, the position, the time of day that's triggering it. Your brain is just labeled, these rules, these conditions are potentially threatening, and so it clicks on pain or symptoms. And so the rules are incorrect. The problem with developing all these rules in this huge rule book is your world gets really small. The smaller your world gets, the more dysregulated we get. And over time, it actually prevents us from healing because we don't heal through avoidance. Yes, we can use some strategic avoidance at times when the symptoms are high, but we heal by slowly approaching life. And today, what I want everyone to do is think about your rule book, because this rule book can be massive. And all these rules that you've set, now we need to start to approach them and overcome them. But the starting place is just understanding your rule book. So the rule book is made up of things you do or don't do because you believe it's going to reduce your pain or symptoms. Or maybe you once believed, hopefully you don't anymore. So the do rules could be things like do 30 minutes of hot yoga every day, eat vegan or paleo. It could be things like going to physiotherapy 2 or 3 times a week, always stretching after you walk more than 5 minutes. We have all these things that we do. Often we think of avoidance of things that we don't do, but these do rules, they're also avoidance. They're really important avoidance that you need to be aware of. I really believe that I need to stretch every night religiously or my pain was going to increase. That was a form of avoidance. I was doing this rule to try and make sure my pain and symptoms were mitigated or reduced. Now, there's also don't rules. Don't walk more than 5 or 10 minutes. Don't sit on couches. Don't socialize at a restaurant. Don't be around lights or loud noises. So all of these things start to add up. All these do and don't rules, they shrink your life more, and they actually make us feel more and more in danger. The more avoidance, the more danger the brain and nervous system feels. And so what I want people to do is spend, 10 or 15 minutes writing out all of these rules. There's probably some obvious rules that you're doing to try and reduce your pain or symptoms, but there's probably things that became second nature to you. I'll give you an example. one thing I was convinced I needed to do that I didn't even think about it because it was such a small rule compared to me not being able to walk. That one was really obvious. But a really small rule was sleep with a pillow under your knees at night. Physiotherapist told me to do this at some point because it was going to help my back or hip pain, supposedly. And so I just did that. I didn't think about it anymore, but there's all these little things and they shrink our world more and more. And so I want people to spend 10 or 15 minutes and write out the rules. You don't want to then go and break all the rules at once because that's going to be incredibly overwhelming, but at least understand like what's all the rules that I'm following right now. And then after you've written it out, it's picking 1 or 2 rules that you want to focus on breaking and overcoming. Now, I have a video, 6 strategies for breaking conditioned responses. I'll put it to the top and down below. These rules are essentially conditioned responses. I had the rule of don't walk more than 5 or 10 minutes. That was a conditioned response, a mistaken conditioned response, where my brain learned walking for more than 5 or 10 minutes equals pain. But that association was wrong. I'd been following that rule for so long, it became very ingrained, but I was able to overcome it. Now I do anything and everything I want with my body. All the activities I want to do, all the movements. So I know that this is possible based on my own experience, but I've also supported so many clients in overcoming this. And there's people out there that have just watched my YouTube channel and overcome their rule book. They've overcome these conditioned responses and now are living full lives. So after you make your rule book, sit down, write it out, then watch the video, 6 steps for breaking conditioned responses. And at that point, you want to focus on 1 or 2 rules to start to break and overcome. So I hope this video was helpful. Please put your questions or comments down below. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.